We could promote.
So Dr. Joe out here unloading his backpack. We're here today. We're going to talk about testosterone. We're going to kind of do a deep dive. And there's like, look at all this. We're going to jump around from topic to topic. So if this video seems long, it seems intimidating by the length, just know it's going to be fun. We are going to jump around a lot. Look at what we're going to discuss. Just some of the few things we're going to discuss. And yeah, what do you think, Dr. Joe? And look at Dr. Joe's shoes. You can't go wrong with these. Explain what these are.
Okay, so these are Onitsuka Tigers from the company Zappos, the only company that's making these. They're just comfortable shoes, and they're reproductions of Bruce Lee's yellow shoes that he wore from Enter the Dragon. So they're great shoes. I've worn them for years.
Hey, Dr. Joe Show. Thank you guys so much for watching. This is the last video where we're doing this solo. We're going to have a videographer. It's going to be professional. By episode 3, we have a videographer. All the images you see here, currently I'm doing it. By episode 3, it's going to be pro. And if it's not pro, we got to have a conversation with this dude. But he's going to be pro. He showed me his profile. He's a good guy. So you guys are only going to gain. We're only going to get better on this show. So Coenzyme Q10 episode, surprisingly good turnout for one video.
Pretty good.
Today we're taking a deep dive on testosterone. And it's something I've been interested in for close to 2 decades now. And also have a lot of friends. Like, we're both in the same age group where we probably know a lot of males who have low T for unexplained reasons. Like, it's never been, I think our generation is probably the first one, the millennials, where at our age range, we have less T than our father's generation.
That's starting to happen.
And now, who knows what's happening? It's probably even worse in the Gen Z and these new ones coming up, the Alpha, whatever they call them.
And we're going to talk about why.
We're going to talk about why. And we're going to talk about a whole bunch of stuff. And you saw in the pre-roll all the things Dr. Joe has been preparing with. We've been reading the same book thanks to his recommendation. So Dr. J wrote this book called Estrogeneration, which is basically what keeps testosterone from.
And how did I find Dr. Anthony J? I found him because I watched this guy's channel, Richard Cooper. He wrote the book, The Unplugged Alpha. If you're a man, especially if you're in your teens, 20s, and you don't know about that book, find out about it. But yeah, Dr. Anthony J is a biochemist. He did stem cell research at Mayo Clinic. He's done a lot of stuff. Really formidable PhD. I just got done reading this book, and this is sort of a book review, but we're going to be touching on a few other things. But so it's a great book.
Let's start with that, though.
Yeah.
Why? Because this video is about testosterone. Why start off this video with estrogen already?
Yeah. So so he named the book Estrogeneration, but we're going to be talking about testosterone. Well, we're talking about this because testosterone levels in men have basically plummeted. And we first discovered how to check testosterone in about 1940. And I mean, interestingly, when I went to the CDC's website, there's no information on this. So the CDC really does not care about our testosterone levels. I'm gonna put this little figure. It's from testosteronedecline.com, and I did some research on this, and folks can see that you basically see 1960, it was at 700, and 2020 it's at about 400. Okay, and there are some anthropologists that think they can predict what the testosterone was a few hundred years ago. The bottom line is it's going down. Now the CDC does care about breast cancer, right? Everybody cares about breast cancer, right? Well, it's 1 in 7 women are going to get breast cancer in their lifetime now. So if you look at the CDC's website, you can't see it very well from that camera, so I'll just kind of flash it up here. I just took this from the CDC's website, but basically what it says, annual number of new breast cancers from 1999 to 2019, so 20 years. In 20 years, the new number of breast cancers went from about 200,000 in the United States to just over 250,000 in the United States. New cases. Now, then if you look at breast cancer rates, there's another reference I found, and it's in this book. 1980, the current rates of people with breast cancer. 1980, it was at about 650,000, and then 2010, 1,650,000. So more than doubled the number of people. The number of women, mainly, with breast cancer in 30 years.
Now, what about, the contrarians will say, well, we're screening it better. We're finding it earlier. Mm-hmm. The diagnostics have improved.
Yeah, I mean, if we're so good about screening, then why is the current guideline to tell women not to do self-breast exam? That's my question.
That's the current guideline.
Yeah, but that's how women find it. That's how a lot of women find it, by knowing their bodies and examining themselves. I always tell my patients to do that. So I disagree, and this podcast is going to tell everybody why.
Okay. All right.
Now we're going to be promoting a lot of things here. Okay, so in a lot of ways, this podcast is going to kind of be like the movie I, Robot, except we don't slap men like a girl on national television. So this is a meme I wanted to share. Now I don't think folks can see the little fine print. So this is a meme I took off of a website, maddox.xmission.com.
We'll have the link underneath.
Yeah, we'll throw the link in there. Anyway, Maddox, and this is from 2004. This is a meme that's almost 20 years old.
A meme before memes were a thing.
Yeah, I mean, so Maddox, how do I talk about Maddox? He's just a guy I admired, one of my best friends.
You think we'll get him on the show?
Maybe. That would be cool.
Yeah.
But check him out. I guarantee something on that website will offend you. That is intentional. He's one of the best satire producers I've ever seen on the internet, in the history of the internet. Almost like the South Park of the internet. So moving on.
Can we go to how maybe testosterone is formed naturally, without, in a natural male, or in a normal male, without any, in a vacuum, like the way God intended, or the higher power?
Yeah, so whether you believe our DNA is 6,000 years old, or whether you believe it's at least 2.4 million years old, it doesn't matter. We have DNA, and it programs our body what to do, and that's an oversimplification. But you get all of your hormones from cholesterol, most of them. Well, that's not entirely true, but your steroid-based hormones come from cholesterol, because there's peptide hormones and there's other types of hormones, but let's just keep it about the cholesterol-based ones. You get cholesterol, then you get DHEA, which you can take as a supplement, which I'm not telling you to take that, and we'll talk about why.
Oh, this is not medical advice for anyone watching.
Yeah, oh yeah. So
Dr. Joe is a doctor, board certified in internal medicine. He also had an undergrad in organic chemistry or biochemistry?
Biochemistry and molecular biophysics is the full name of it, but I just say biochemistry.
Okay.
I did a thesis. I didn't get a master's. I did bench research for some time, but
okay. So cholesterol to DHEA.
Yeah, and you can look up these pathways online. And it's in the biochemistry books. You get cholesterol, and it gets converted. It gets hydroxylated. There's all these different steps. You basically get testosterone, and then testosterone gets turned into different estrogens. Okay, and there's different ways this is regulated. So the question is, why and how has this been dysregulated in our country? Why is men's testosterone plummeting? Why am I seeing people of reproductive age with testosterone in the toilet? Okay, it's because of all the stuff in this book, which is why everybody should read this book. There's no way we can cover everything in this book. Okay, we're going to touch on some things, and I'm going to strongly recommend that you guys read it yourself. This is a book made to be read and consumed by anybody, whether they have a history of bench research or whether they know nothing about science. I found reading the book very distracting because I just wanted to read all there's like 500 references that this guy put in here. But just to kind of make it simple, our exposure to estrogen-like molecules has been steadily increasing. And anybody watching this, if you have unexplained anxiety, if you have unexplained sleep disturbance, if you have unexplained anything, doctors, lethargy, fatigue, doctors will use the term idiopathic, right? You've heard idiopathic, right? Well, idio means you don't know. So when you use the word idiopathic, it means, well, I'm an idiot. I don't know. So I'm just going to use the word idiopathic. So, because we don't know a lot of stuff. The more we learn, the less we realize we know. So what do we know? Well, if I kind of just look at this list here, you have plant estrogens. You have fungus estrogens.
Soy, right?
Yeah, plant estrogens. But we're just going to go very quickly through here.
Okay.
We're going to have pesticide estrogens, triclosan, BPs, particularly BP4, red food coloring, parabens, phthalates, BPA, and I don't think we have any BPA here.
And BPS.
And BPS, right? And we'll talk about that too. And the last but not least, and this is probably one of the worst, most dangerous ones, is ethinyl estradiol, the 17-alpha ethinyl estradiol. This is the list.
That's birth control?
Yeah, it is the most common birth control, but now the World Health Organization is starting to call some of these birth controls a class 1 carcinogen. How come that didn't make national news? But all that aside, moving on to, so the first thing I want to talk about is food. And I know we talked about omega-6s last time. We're not going to touch on that too much.
See, that's the thing with this show is a lot of the topics overlap.
Yeah, everything overlaps.
It's science, it's biology, it's nature, it's human physiology.
Yeah. So, flaxseed. In World War II, we made gun oil from flaxseed. And then at some point after that, we decided to start eating it. So at what point does consuming gun oil become good for you? It isn't, because flax is
flaxseed.
Full of, do you know the chemical that's in flaxseed that's bad for you? Lignans.
I read it, yeah, okay.
It's lignans, okay? So lignans are estrogenic. And you can read about all the lignans and what they do. But if you don't have the right gut bacteria, the lignans are going to feminize you. Soy has isoflavones in it. Soy is estrogenic. Soy has been touted as a health food by different groups, but soy is absolutely terrible for you. It's terrible for men. It's terrible for women. I've known multiple women who took large amounts of soy at menopause. I've met a few of these women, and they all told me the same thing. Oh, I heard soy was good. I took soy, and just to help replace my estrogen in the setting of menopause. But guess what? They had abnormal menses, and then they went and had their uterus ultrasounded, and the band was 1 centimeter. Now, if you know what the standard is supposed to be for a postmenopausal woman, it's supposed to be less than 2 millimeters. Mm-hmm. So if your uterine band is 1 centimeter, then you start wondering if that's going to turn into an endometrial cancer. Well, when you get rid of the soy, then it all normalizes and it goes away. So these effects are reversible, but if you don't know you're being exposed to them, then you're just going to get more and more toxic from it. Okay.
Well, the one that soy is one of the biggest culprits. The one that scared me a lot from reading this book and living in Arizona is the sunscreen.
Oh, yeah.
Where it becomes permanent with ultraviolet light from the sun.
Oh, yes. Yeah.
Permanently locked on.
Yeah. So oxybenzone, all of the benzones that you see in any sunblock. All the sunblock.
Do we have oxybenzone in our sunblock? We got to check.
Yeah.
My wife's going to run and check all the stuff right now.
Yeah, so
it hasn't gotten hot here yet to where we're using it, but summer's coming and
So basically that chemical can get plugged onto estrogen receptors in your skin. By the way, there's estrogen receptors all over your body. They're in your immune system. They're in your brain.
In your skin.
They're in your skin. They're in your liver. They're everywhere.
What's the reason for this from a evolutionary perspective? Do you think to have estrogen receptor all over?
Well, it's because estrogen is very much regulated by your karyotype, because there's X chromosome and Y chromosome, and then there's X and X. And so that's why you have to make a delineation between the expression of those two karyotypes. And that's where I think we should... Oh, here we go.
Let's see. Live
I saw
on the show.
Just the way this thing feels in my hand, I already have some concerns. Here we go, and I'm gonna cover up the name of this thing: avobenzone, homosalate, octisalate, and octocrylene. Okay, those last three. I mean, one. So that's some sort of an acid. That second one. Those last two are some sort of, I don't know, hydrocarbon. But that first one is a benzone. Okay, so the benzone is carcinogenic and estrogenic, and it's going to actually cause more melanoma than it prevents.
Is that the one that in the book it said when you combine it with sunlight, it permanently turns on your estrogen?
Yeah. So these chemicals have been shown to permanently turn on estrogen receptors in the skin. And once you turn on these receptors, then it just kind of sets your body down a pathway of potential harm.
Yeah.
At least in theory, right? This is all theoretical, right?
It's all theoretical.
Well,
It's all
how to
theoretical.
sell then?
So you got to be super careful about what you're buying. I mean, this was in Costco. It's not a cheap one from.
Yeah. Red. Oh yeah. The food coloring.
The food coloring
Okay.
is bad too. That
So-
surprised me a lot.
Yeah. So food coloring. I mean, most people. I mean, it's hard to generalize, but a lot of people I've talked to in my life recognize there's something wrong with food coloring. They just don't know what it is.
Yeah.
Well,
Can we see the jelly from the fridge, babe? I want to see
Jelly?
if it has it. Yeah.
so the UK banned a lot of this stuff, and after the European Union formed, they relaxed the regulations.
Strawberry.
But one thing talked about in this book was how the red food coloring promotes ADHD.
Yeah, and
So-
that's what scared me a lot. So we don't really eat jelly, but
So then I'm
My
thinking,
mom does.
I love this stuff.
as a clinician, I'm thinking, so drink your red colored drink and then get some Adderall, right? And then so that's kind of the concern.
so this doesn't have red coloring in it, but it does
that
have,
looks natural.
It does have high fructose corn syrup though. I love this stuff, but
Yeah.
Okay, at least it's not estrogen. Well, so estrogenic, high fructose corn syrup.
Is that organic?
No.
Okay, so why does organic matter? Anybody know why the word USD organic matters? So this is another big problem. Even when I was in medical school, a lot of my teachers who supposedly were well read, they said there is no evidence of any health benefits to eating organic.
No, I heard that too.
This is something that they attempted to teach me. That's completely false. Okay, so if that jelly, whatever brand that jelly is over there, if it doesn't say organic, you can almost guarantee it was sprayed with atrazine. Okay,
And that's in this book.
yeah,
Atrazine.
yeah. So atrazine is illegal in other parts of the world. Okay, if anybody knows what atrazine is, it's the most commonly used pesticide. Dr. J estimates the atrazine that's sprayed in the U.S. It's 80 million gallons or something,
Yeah,
or pounds, or
it's insane.
yeah. It was a lot. And
Europe banned it. How does Europe ban things before the U.S. does?
Well, Europe has a lot more of a practical approach to medicine in general. I mean, Europe is the one who found the meaning of the appendix. The appendix protects you from C. diff. There's a study that proves it. Anybody know what C. diff is? Okay, so C. diff, Clostridium difficile, and they just changed the name recently. When I don't care.
Yeah.
But C. diff is an infection that you can get when a provider gives you an antibiotic for an infection. So the antibiotic wipes out most of your gut flora. C. diff is resistant to almost everything except a handful of drugs, and then you get overgrowth of C. diff, and it can kill you. And the UK found that our appendix protects you from C. diff because they find more C. diff in people who've had their appendices removed. So Europe, I mean, hats off to Europe for just trying to be the most honest in the medical community in a lot of ways.
Before we move off of the food color,
That's
okay,
organic.
this one's an organic.
So that's organic.
Primal
Okay.
Kitchen
That's
ketchup. It's not the standard Heinz, which
Okay.
probably for sure has atrazine and
Let's see.
food coloring. This I hope doesn't have food.
And that sound there, that's glass. So
Yeah.
I'm already very happy with this Primal Kitchen.
Well,
Let's
not
see.
this next one.
Organic tomato concentrate, balsamic vinegar, and less than 2% of salt, onion powder, garlic powder, and spices.
Primal Kitchen would love to have you as a sponsor.
Okay, folks. I didn't even know about this. We are now promoting Primal Kitchen. Okay,
They're going to
there we go.
sponsor us soon. These guys,
Oh, plastic.
first red flag.
Here we go. Number one. So this is a BPA plastic. So we already have a partial fail for Suja. But let's give Suja a chance. Organic cucumber juice, celery juice, grapefruit juice, green chard, leaf lettuce. Okay, everything in here is natural. So they get an A+ for ingredients, and they get an F for the plastic. Okay.
Can I drink this?
So you get a C rating.
We'll still want you as a sponsor, maybe.
Yeah, it's. But again, we're talking about phthalates now. I messaged you and I mixed this up because I want to
The
do
phthalates was concerning too.
I want to do some drawing. Is this thing still on? It's still recording.
It's still on, yeah.
Okay, good. Yeah, I didn't see the screen on. I wanted to draw some pictures because when people hear the word paraben, when
Yeah.
people hear the word phthalate, even if you took organic chemistry, you don't really know what that is unless you actually saw the chemical. So
We were never taught. I
Yeah.
chem twice.
Now-
once for failing.
Now, Dr. McGrath, he was my organic chem teacher, and I would say he is the reason for my grasp, at least sort of a grasp of OChem. I mean, he really made me passionate about it. And Dr. McGrath, love you. Anyway, paraben equals phenol ester. I texted this to you last. Okay, yeah, here we go. So paraben equals phenol ester. Okay, see, I know what a phenol is, and I know what an ester is. So how about we just draw it out? Okay, so this is a. Okay, if I do that, that, and that, what's that?
Double bind. That's the classic
That's a benzene.
ring in organic chemistry.
Yeah, so the other way that a benzene ring was denoted, it's always denoted just for simplification, is a circle. You know, so the idea is that these double bonds are not static. There's actually an electron cloud. You know, it's like this effect. It's like a field effect. So that's why benzene is such a reactive compound. Like benzene is in crude oil. It's carcinogenic. So what happens if
So that's highly reactive, right?
Yeah, this is
Because of
already
those double bonds. It's like potential energy in those double bonds.
Yeah, they're very reactive,
Yeah.
right? And then there's what's called ring activators and ring deactivators, and so you get like an O and an H here, okay, and then you got some extra electrons on that oxygen, right? So do you think those extra electrons will make this more reactive or less reactive?
More.
More, right? So you got an oxygen touching a benzene ring. This thing is going to be super reactive, right?
Those represent potential. Anytime you see a double bond or electrons like that, they're looking to react with something.
Well, yeah, like this is why formaldehyde is such a reactive compound, you know, and
Is that an O on the top?
yeah, so yeah, it's an O. Just you know, my just my fabulous doctor handwriting, right? Okay, so
double bond to O from aldehyde.
and so now, what is a ester? Do you remember what an ester is? You have an O, and then you have an O and an R group. Okay, so this general structure, and R. If I say R, that means wild card. It could be anything. It could be all kinds of
It's
different
usually
things.
like a protein chain or like a longer chain.
It just means other stuff.
Okay.
That's basically what
Anything.
what the R is. Okay.
Okay.
So that's why when like in organic chem lab, you would take a carboxylic acid, you know, and there's no R group, and you react it with an alcohol, and then you end up with an ester. Okay. But basically, so the paraben is the phenol ester. So this is a paraben. Okay. Now, if I just draw this thing right here, right? Okay. I believe, if I'm not mistaken, there might be two carbons here. I'm not sure, but I'm thinking of benzoic acid. Okay, this is either benzoic acid or it's something really close to benzoic acid. But the bottom line is, it's a carboxylic acid on a benzene ring. So that might be benzoic acid. But this is a common preservative that is in a lot of foods.
Probably that jelly that I brought out.
Yeah, it's actually in that jelly, and it's in one of the other things that you showed me. But it doesn't have that ring activator on it. So benzoic acid is it's a safer thing in your food, but it's still really not that safe because you're still a few carbons away from ring activators. So this one is still a little toxic.
What's the danger in the ring activator?
Well, the danger in activating a ring here is that it'll just indiscriminately react with everything, and just kind of like the benzones, like you get irreversible activity on your receptors. So it can irreversibly turn on receptor things and it'll just dysregulate.
So are we talking about testosterone receptors, estrogen receptors?
Yep.
Any of them?
Any of them, yeah. Phthalates. We were talking about phthalates. So that's a diester connected to a benzene. Okay, so that's like this one, but I would so there's no phenol in that one, and then this one ends up with I believe it's something like this.
So back to what you just said though with the disruptor.
Mm-hmm.
So usually these disruptions, when it comes to the receptors of whatever they may be, in this case we're talking about hormones. Mm-hmm. Usually they negatively disrupt. Are there any things that positively disrupt these receptors to make them more likely to bind to, let's say, something good that's not going to cause an increase in estrogen in males, but an increase in testosterone?
There's, I guess we were talking about this one, diendolyl methane, right? And anyway, folks, diendolyl methane. This is and I didn't research this one. I think you know more about this one than me.
My doctor prescribes this to me.
Your doctor does?
Yeah,
cool.
It's not prescribed. You recommend that?
Sure, of course. Yeah.
It's over the counter. Hopefully, we get sponsored by them too.
Yeah.
Prevents your T from being converted to estrogen. So one of the problems of increasing your testosterone is the excess unused, I guess, gets converted to estrogen.
Yeah. Yeah, so
you start getting man boobs and stuff like
that. Yeah, you get the moobs, the man boobs, whatever you want to call it.
The moobs.
You know, like the technical medical term is gynecomastia. So any time you see gynecomastia, it's basically the man boobs. But we were talking about DHEA. So people will go to the health food store and they'll just go buy supplements and they'll say, "Oh, this is good." But if you take too much DHEA, you can actually cause more estrogen to form in your body, and then that'll work against you if you're using the DHEA that way.
Aromatase inhibitor.
No, aromatase inhibitor. So that's interesting. So that an aromatase inhibitor, it just prevents the formation of estrogen. So that's pretty cool. Like letrozole and there's a couple other ones.
But from a chemical perspective, because you were saying it disrupts, these are disruptors of receptors.
Yeah, I mean,
so would an aromatase inhibitor also be a disruptor? But an
aromatase inhibitor is just going to kind of remove that estrogenic input. So you're gonna cut back the estrogen. So for a man who wants to preserve the testosterone his body is producing, in the setting of hormone replacement, for example. A lot of men will get put on the aromatase inhibitors because, like, you're giving them testosterone, right? And then, but their testosterone is not increasing that much, and they still don't feel that good. And then you put them on aromatase inhibitor, and it shuts it down, and then their testosterone goes up, it blocks their estrogen, and then they feel better. That's why you feel better. Like, you got to talk about you feel better because how the patient is feeling, it actually matters. It's not just about numbers, And
everyone's different.
And let's talk about expert guidelines and groups of people that make guidelines for a second.
But can we, before that, can we do like a quick free T versus?
Oh yeah, free T. Yeah. So there's sex hormone binding globulin. Okay.
Yes.
Everything in your body requires some sort of a delivery system. You know, so the most common delivery system in your body is what's called albumin. It's this big protein that your liver makes, and it moves things around. The things it moves around are the polar, the fat soluble things quite a bit. Because if you take fat soluble compounds and you just put them into your bloodstream, they're not going to go very far if they don't have a carrier mechanism, you know. So that's the first thing. The second thing is the hormones are going to be made. So when you check your testosterone level, there's your free and there's your total. So then your free is going to be some number and your total is going to be another number. The total is what this little figure talked about. So the total, you know, was 700 in 1960, and in 2020 it was about 400. So the free is something more recent that people are looking into because they're putting it in context as sex hormone binding globulin.
Yes.
Because if you have too much sex hormone binding globulin, then it's all bound up and it's not going to be as likely to be dropped off as much. So that's a problem.
Ways to decrease the SHBG levels?
Not sure. That one I don't know.
I'm wondering if DIM has a role in that.
It could. I mean, I think the main focus of this podcast is the things that we're being exposed to,
right?
Which over time should benefit everybody, and there should be an urgency, hopefully by now, in the folks that are listening, because if you're thinking about all those effects, there's even more. Okay,
it gets deeper.
So let's talk about BPA and BPS, right? So we were talking about BPA. So this is a flexible container of plastic, and it's clear, so you can see through it. Phthalates, right? So you got phthalates, and then you got BPA and BPS. All this stuff is estrogenic. All this stuff causes cancer. So there are over 9,000 studies on just BPA. Over 9,000. And
huge media attention.
And yet there's almost no attention from the medical community. Okay. You're talking about, well, is this stuff causing cancer? Well, what happens if you ask an oncologist? Do you know what happens if you ask an oncologist about why I got this cancer?
Depends on the
crickets.
oncologist.
You get crickets. I mean, none of them are going to talk about.
I used to work with an oncologist in the Bronx. Rest in peace. He passed away most likely from COVID.
Yeah.
He told me, he said, Dan, every night make sure you wash your armpits really well when you shower. You don't want those heavy metals getting into your bloodstream.
Cool.
So
heavy metals from your deodorant?
Yeah.
Oh, by the way, we should talk about that.
That's why I brought it up too. I mean,
anyway,
you should have met this guy.
I wish I did. There's a lot of people I wish I would have met. But anyway, so this happens to be Schmidt's cedarwood juniper. Okay.
Potential sponsor.
Okay, potential sponsor, I guess. But this one, I can't remember how I found out about this, but let me just read the ingredients. Okay, something natural, bicarbonate. There's no aluminum. So the aluminum compound that's in antiperspirants, I believe it's aluminum zirconium tetrachlorohydrix. I'm pretty sure. But that's the huge aluminum compound that makes antiperspirants work. But it's horribly toxic for your brain and other parts of your body. There's no propylene glycol. There's no artificial fragrances. There's no parabens. There's really nothing in here but just natural stuff. They figured out how to do this by using coconut triglycerides. Lipids, basically. Anything lipophilic cannot be transported in the blood without some kind of transporter. This is why cholesterol is important. But yeah.
So that deodorant has organic coconut triglycerides.
Yeah, so I mean, it's a series of essential oils and shea butter, coconut triglycerides, and some wax. You know, so that's really it. There's no mention of fragrance. There's no mention of parabens. That really.
So the aluminum and traditional antiperspirants.
Mm-hmm.
Can you give us just like whatever you know about its mechanism of action as far as negative consequences and once it hits your skin?
It's really hard to move that stuff. That's why it's an antiperspirant. It literally blocks up your pores and it stops you from perspiring. So if you don't perspire, it's your body's detox mechanisms don't work that well, right? So that can't be good for you. I mean, just think about the precautionary principle for a second, okay? We're not going to talk about a randomized control trial, double blind, that has 20,000 patients enrolled in it, and we're going to prove every little thing. Let's just talk about any toxic effects whatsoever. If there's any toxic effects whatsoever in mice, rats, frogs, fish, which are very sensitive to even a little bit of these chemicals sometimes, you can bet they're going to be toxic to us. And you take the precautionary principle. But aluminum zirconium tetrachlorohydrex, which is still used in antiperspirants, it probably has negative effects on our bodies. And just from what we know about the basic science of that, I mean, the precautionary principle wins. At least it should win, if you care. If you have kids, if you're young and you are of childbearing age, this discussion is particularly relevant.
Which is most of our audience.
Yeah. But I know we're going to jump around here. There is no way that we can cover the breadth of this book. I mean, this
one thing
the work that went into this book, man. Anyway.
One thing we didn't cover from this book before, not to get too sidetracked, we'll get back to the structure here. Alkyl phenols we didn't talk about yet, right?
Alkyl phenols, yes. I believe Dr. J. He just apes, 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 yeah. Now, what do you remember about those from here?
We need to avoid them.
Pretty much. But where were the alkyl phenols? I forgot. See, we just read this book, and it's so dense. Where is it? Where is it?
It's because of the, when you mentioned the animal studies, page 27.
27.
Transfer from soaps through your skin.
Oh, soaps. Yeah. Triclosan.
Technically, apes are surfactants, which means they cause the delightful suds in soaps.
Yeah,
mainly, therefore, we're exposed to apes from standard American detergents or soaps, although apes are sometimes even used as starting material for the chemical production of antioxidants.
This is so that's a perfect launch-off point. So let's bring up another product right now.
One of my wife's favorites.
So this is
sponsorship.
This is Dr. Bronner's cast-style soap. This in particular is peppermint, okay? Because I really like the peppermint. But just read the ingredients here: water, organic coconut oil, potassium hydroxide, organic palm kernel oil, organic olive oil, mentha arvensis, organic hemp oil, organic jojoba oil, mentha piperita, citric acid, and tocopherol. No parabens, no APEs. When you make hand soap out of this, so there's
potassium hydroxide sounds scary.
Potassium hydroxide, yeah, that sounds scary, but that's how you make soap. Okay. You got to use some form of lye, some sort of a earth metal. It's not earth metal. It's the metals on the far left of the periodic table. You got to use one of those with a hydroxide to make soap. But this one, I have made hand soap out of this, and so there's dilution instructions all over these bottles. Like this, it's full of text. This thing.
Have you ever read this thing?
Yeah.
My wife's a huge fan.
All the inspirational things. Yeah, it's kind of fun to just read it in the shower, but then you kind of run out of hot water.
Do all the biz dev for these brands I'm mentioning. Chris watches.
But one thing you'll notice, if you make hand soap out of this and you lather up, it's not the same as the store-bought pre-mixed hand soap. That soap stays with you more. You guys know what I'm talking about, right? This one, you can lather it up, but it washes off a lot easier. So that's where the alkyl phenols, I think, come into play. They linger. Anything that lingers on your skin more is going to be more absorbed by your skin.
And why does it linger more, like from a chemical? Do you feel like drawing that, something like that?
Well, it's undoubtedly going to involve
benzene again,
an activated ring. Not just a benzene ring, but something that's going to get activated by electrons.
So basically, the same concept you had up there earlier.
Yeah, this is what I drew earlier. I mean, we're all coming back to organic chemistry because we are biochemical organisms, right? But But the other thing that's in some hand soaps is antibiotics, right? Any soap that says antibacterial hand soap, you should never spend money on any of that stuff ever. That has the most common one is triclosan. So that antibiotic that goes through your skin, it's estrogenic. Terrible for you, especially for little kids, because the feminization of little boys, that's not that's not some woo-woo term. That term is making it into scientific literature now, and it's been in there. So it's not, it's not one of those things you can't say. We can say it. So what was I going to say? Oh yeah, so we're talking about mainstream doctors, okay? And like, I'm an internal medicine guy. I'm board certified, and
outpatient community
outpatient
clinic.
guy. I was a hospitalist for a while, but if you look at the way endocrinologists are trained, and you talk to them about testosterone, they don't care about this.
Why?
They don't care. Well, because they have guidelines. Like if you look at, actually, I made a little mark in the book here. All these different labs. So you look at like Quest and LabCorp and any lab. And we use Sonora Quest. Okay, so
Which is Quest. It's Quest.
Oh no, it is Quest Diagnostics. Okay, so it is. Like, look at these testosterone levels. It's like, so the normal for males, it's anywhere from 348. I think it's nanograms per deciliter, right? 348 to 1197, and then another one says 250 to 1100. Medicare doesn't call a testosterone low unless it's less than 300. So, but the bottom line is there's all this variability here, because it's arbitrary. Because, well, this is what's normal now statistically, so that means it's got to be normal. Not true. Because, a 20-year-old should not have a testosterone of 300. That's just wrong. Any endocrinologist who wants to tell me that that's right, go ahead and rage post and
if you're seeing someone who thinks that's right and not doing anything about it, switch. There are doctors out there like Dr. Joe, community-based clinician. If you don't like your doctor, switch.
Yeah,
if you can.
Yeah, it's more so about the way human physiology was intended, and you can look at the way our physiology was intended by just, well, that person's healthy, that person's not healthy. It's common sense. But
so we talked earlier about some of the what do you call it?
Idiopathic. Yeah, so we were talking about lethargy and stuff. Okay, so another thing that parabens do, if anybody has heard the word parabens are the fragrances in all the products that you're using. If it's not an essential oil, you're just going to see parfum or fragrance on there. And those are all parabens. Mm-hmm. Until proven otherwise, you just assume, well, all of it is parabens. And parabens are estrogenic.
And paraben has this structure as well, or similar?
Yeah, paraben, I believe, paraben was the one that was...
Is benzene?
Yeah, well, it has a benzene, or is that the phenol? See, I mixed them up. Oh, yeah, no, phenol ester. Yeah. Okay. So paraben is phenol ester. So this is phenol, and then you put an ester on it. So you go down to a carbon, and you got a little ketone group there, and then you have an oxygen, and you think it's just a carboxylic acid, but nope, it's an ester. There's some carbon group there. R can be some carbons. It could be a carbon and whatever. It can be all kinds of stuff. So the R group just denotes it's whatever. It's so parabens. So this is what most of the fragrances are that you're smelling. So when you're spraying something in a room because the room doesn't smell good, then you're spraying this. Okay. When you're buying that expensive perfume that you're going to cover yourself with, you're smelling something like this. And use of parabens has been associated with anxiety. Okay? And
ADHD, it said in there.
Well, ADHD is associated with red food coloring.
Okay.
And that's why some countries have outright banned it, but we haven't banned it.
Right.
So let's look at some products, and I'm not going to name names, but let's just look at some products that are commonly used. People say, "Oh, well, I want some electrolyte drink," and the word "light" is in the drink. I'm just going to say that, and it's like bright red. It has artificial sweeteners in it, and it's got some electrolytes in it. And for some people, it causes severe insomnia, and and other people, they have ADHD. Oh, look at this.
And also, this is something I was telling my wife about parabens before we get to this thing. But parabens do, however, alter thyroid hormone levels during pregnancy. Pregnant women should not use perfume.
Yeah, pregnant women should not use perfume, but
that's all I use.
But if you get towards the end of this book, it talks about epigenetics. So actually, exposures to certain stimuli in utero can affect future generations.
It could even affect the.
And this is why diethylstilbestrol was so bad. I mean, it's not only associated with breast cancer, as Dr. J talks about, but it's also, I believe, it's also associated with clear cell carcinoma of the ovaries. But maybe that was something else.
So
anyway,
here's
electrolyte. So
Mexican drinks.
So here's something from Mexico. I mean, we live in Yuma, okay? So this is something that came from Mexico, and Red 40. Look at that.
Super bad.
Acetato isobutirato de sacarosa. That doesn't sound good.
In any language.
Asolfame. You know, we should do now. I did not look.
So it won't be sponsored by Electrolyte ever.
No, probably not. But especially because they get a massive fail for using. Well, actually, you know what? They use Type 5 plastic. So this is the best
Mexicans
plastic.
got it going on.
So this is the
A+ on the plastic.
So Electrolyte gets an A+ for the plastic they
and that's
use,
from Mexico.
but they get an F for basically all the ingredients. So
does it wash out to even with here?
No, that washes out to. I would never touch that. But
why? Because of the food color.
Because of the artificial sweeteners, and we're going to do another podcast just on artificial sweeteners because that topic.
But once in a while, when you're like super dehydrated. No,
actually, you're more vulnerable if you're super dehydrated and you drink something like this.
Okay.
Because your body is going to soak up more of the chemicals.
So what do you recommend for people that are super dehydrated, especially coming from Arizona?
Actually, if you live in Yuma, there's some really good electrolyte supplements sold at a new store called Bravo 6.
That's where you went last week.
I was there.
We couldn't because she had a quinceañera.
I should have brought I wish I should have. Okay, well, I don't have any of the. Actually, no, I have a picture of their pineapple on my phone. So
Pineapple.
so
Mexican plastic, amazing.
There we go. Check it out. Bravo 6. There we go. Look at that. So there it is. Bravo 6. So you see, it's like a little hand grenade pineapple thing. Anyway, so it's a health food store. It's in Yuma.
Health food store in Foothills.
Yeah, it's in the Foothills. It's on 32nd, and it's right next to 8E. It's almost next to Walmart.
Mm-hmm.
Well, look, we just promoted Walmart. Okay, so it's a great store, health food store. He does not carry all the stuff that you would imagine. I mean, so they cherry picked the products that they believe in and that they've used themselves. Because the two owners, the husband and wife that owns this place, they are fitness experts. So anybody who lives in Yuma, you should check out Bravo 6.
Bravo 6.
I'll
interview them for our Yuma Colanglo Charles channel.
Yeah.
All right, so back. Okay, so this red food coloring.
Red food, yeah. So
we did the parabens.
So parabens and anxiety. Now, from a clinical standpoint, if you know anything about just the word anxiety, I remember when I was in training, I was on my psychiatry rotation, and one of the senior residents was talking to me about anxiety, and we were just clinically talking about what is anxiety, and the impression I got was that anxiety itself is a smokescreen for some other problem that has more definition. Okay, because anxiety is, let's face it, it is poorly managed in this country in particular when you have certain medications that are just doled out without really any follow-up. For example, benzodiazepines. So you've heard of benzodiazepines, right?
Of course, yeah. Most of my work is in.
I have talked to toxicologists, and I'm not quoting myself. I'm not representing my clinic. I'm actually representing something that came out of a toxicologist's mouth. Okay, the late Dr. Seifert. I quote him. He said, "Soma is malpractice. Xanax is almost malpractice. And this is what toxicologist said. So I'm not implicating anybody's doctor for malpractice, whoever prescribed it. Okay, I'm just saying that the existence of the medication, that medication is so dangerous that originally its use was only intended to be restricted to psychiatrists who would use it for a very short time,
acute setting,
for an acute time, and they would do it for like maybe 2 weeks with very close follow-up. But if anybody knows the way psychiatry is going these days, I mean, it's just not a thing covered by Medicare to do psychotherapy. Like, nobody covers psychotherapy. So psychiatrists are just stuck with using drugs, and it's really unfortunate.
Yeah, and you're seeing all the with antipsychotics. You're seeing now things like tardive dyskinesia.
Tardive dyskinesia.
That's like a huge sub-market now. Mm-hmm. Anyone who's on antipsychotics almost automatically going to at some point need TD meds.
I mean, Billy Corgan, like, he actually put the word Thorazine in one of his songs. You know, if you listen to the album Oceania, like he's actually singing about his experience in a psych ward.
Yeah,
because this shirt's made by Billy Corgan, by the way. If anybody likes the shirt,
my wife likes it.
It's a pumpkin shirt.
Smashing pumpkins.
But getting back on topic, so parabens can cause anxiety. So should people be thinking about, you know, the benzodiazepine that they're going to need in the future every time they go to France and buy some fancy perfume, right? This is something that you got to think about, because pharmaceutical industries are making a ton of money off of these medications that are just being prescribed for just anxiety.
Well, since we brought up the brain, okay, can we just give, because I noticed we haven't done this yet, give a brief overview to the PAG axis, pituitary, adrenal, gonadal, and how testosterone's like kind of comes out of that.
Yeah, so your pituitary gland, you know, it sits behind your optic chiasm, and there's the anterior and the posterior, and they have slightly different functions, but you have the releasing hormones, which are the precursors to all the other hormones that we check routinely.
Gonadotropic releasing?
Yeah, so then there's GnRH, there's TRH, there's CRH, there's ACTH. So there's a whole bunch of, I mean, so the other term for ACTH is cosentropin. And that's, if anybody knows the cosentropin test, you're injecting people with ACTH to see how their adrenals respond.
We're doing that. I showed you the test.
Yeah, you're doing it.
Study we have.
Yeah,
ACTH stimulation.
So you guys are doing that in the clinic, right?
If somebody screens with a low cortisol value,
basically for Addison's disease, right?
Yeah, but like low cortisol, they want us to do an ACTH test to see if the cortisol will go up. If it still doesn't, they're a screen failure. We can't use them in the study.
Right, because then they have Addison's and
that's
going to screw up the study.
They have something hormonal, right? Like that.
Yeah, and that would definitely confound a study. Yeah, for sure.
Yeah.
That's a reasonable exclusion for sure. But yeah. So your pituitary secretes all of these sort of pre-hormones that
eventually somehow get to luteinizing hormone.
Yeah, luteinizing hormone. LH, FSH. This is all stuff that is part of all of your hormone axes. And your adrenals are a huge part of this because you have different layers of your adrenals that secrete all these hormones, right?
But there is a balance. So, you know, this book kind of makes estrogen feel like the enemy. But there is like a balance between, there is a balance male and females. Obviously, the ratio is different, but we all need to have between testosterone and estrogen. That is a healthy balance.
Yeah, so people think that people who don't know anything about hormones and they hear testosterone and estrogen, well, then some of them might assume that men don't have any estrogen and women don't have any testosterone. So that's wrong. That's wrong. Women need testosterone just like men need testosterone. Women just don't need that much of it. If women's testosterone goes to undetectable, they don't have any libido. There's nothing. If women's testosterone goes up too high, their libido will go away. So the sweet spot for women is, you know, it's somewhere around 100, even up to 200. of the standard units. Whereas for men, for healthy as a horse men who are doing a lot of work and they got that V shape, just kind of like, you know,
I got a V shape.
Just
Come on,
just
we
to
can
give a
show my
flat
body. We can show my body.
How do people know if they have too much testosterone though? Like when you start getting facial hair?
Yeah, so yeah, when a woman has too much testosterone, you know, because she's growing hair out of her face, and it's like, okay, you know, that's not so good. So
Deep voice. The voice gets deeper?
Yeah, the voice gets deeper. You can see acne. You can see all these other things. But yeah, women's main hormone is going to be estrogen. You know, so but men have a little bit of estrogen too.
Yep.
You know, so
it's not like, because this book paints estrogen out to be like a terrible thing, and
it's I mean, it can make the perception of that,
Yeah.
but really what the book is saying is that there's a bunch of estrogen mimickers that we're surrounded by. I mean, just to quote Boromir from Lord of the Rings, the very air you breathe is a poisonous fume. I mean, there are studies referenced in this book that are just talking about air quality in some countries. Like, people are breathing in this stuff.
Well, Yuma's not the greatest. Well,
Yuma,
pesticides that
they're spraying atrazine. Yeah, like that smell that you smell when you descend into the valley, and they've been spraying. I mean, and it has that kind of a produce smell. That's not produce. That's atrazine.
Yeah,
like that's, and we're all breathing it in. And
I was watching Huberman. Andrew Huberman actually he's the neuropsychiatrist talking about. I think he was talking about depression and pesticides, and or air quality and depression. And he said that the misconception is that urban centers have more depression because of the air quality, but actually the worst air quality is in rural places because of the pesticides. That's like a lot of people just assume, oh, well, you're away from the city, your air quality is really good.
Yeah, I mean, I think it just depends. It depends on what rural place you're in. I mean, like,
Not that stuff's good
if you
for
go to Mexico City, I mean, if you live your life, like if you grew up in Mexico City, right?
Yeah.
It's basically equivalent to having smoked like a pack of cigarettes every day. I mean,
but the altitude's high.
But the altitude's high. You know, so altitude is good, and you know, and we're talking about this too. So this is also this is a figure from the testosteronedecline.com. And by the way, I did contact the webmasters, and they gave me permission to use this. So I wanted to say thank you for testosteronedecline.com's you know, allowing us to use this. And these guys are going to be making some products that are really good, up and coming, and more about that later. But this is here. I'm going to just put that in front of the camera. So basically, what this study showed, it was it's not the most powerful study, but it just makes you think. They had somebody at sea level, and they took them to elevation, and the testosterone level rapidly increased. Day one, it was just over, like between 700 and 800, and then it was over 900 2 days later, and then it leveled off like between 900 and 1,000 over the next few weeks.
Do you think it's due to the cardio work you're doing, basically just moving yourself up there? It's like exercise?
Well, there's, so elevation, and I know elevation kind of exceeds the breadth of this podcast, but it is an interesting topic, because if you look at the people who live in the Himalayas, those people have intrinsic protection against certain illnesses. Their blood is very thick, but they don't get clots, and their ACE2 receptor protein is actually completely different in conformation, and it's all related to the change in the oxygen level. You know,
Maybe
so
that's another podcast.
And then you go and you look at anthropology. All the people who survived the Earth's cataclysms were mountain people. You know, and if you want to read more about mountain people,
I was going to just ask you to
this is a pretty cool book. It's written by Jeff Prather. Initiation. So it's about his journey with an Apache medicine man. Highly recommended. I mean, for that spiritual refinement that, you know, our country and probably the world needs. But anyway, really good book. I recommend folks check it out. Now, the other book I wanted to bring up was
back to the mental health, right?
Back to mental health. There's a book, and again, that toxicologist, Dr. Seifert, who passed away recently. I love you. Anyway, he recommended that I buy this book. This is a toxicologist. And so this book is called Or Not to Be, a collection of suicide notes. Now, why would a toxicologist recommend that you read a book of suicide notes? Well, of all the notes that were in this book, there was one survivor of the attempted suicide that read their note, and they went back and they said, you know what? I don't know what I was thinking. So the common thread here, the whole point of what I'm saying is that there's a loss of logic, okay? Mm-hmm. What's happening in our society right now is not logical. And you want to talk about studies and the logic of men and women, okay? When women are ovulating, they're more attracted to masculine, manly men. When women are not ovulating, particularly when they're on their periods, they're more attracted to beta males. Okay?
My wife's nodding her head. And
then here's this wife over there nodding her head. Okay, so this is not a controversial thing.
No wonder you're not attracted to me when you're on your periods, because I'm too masculine.
Yeah,
makes sense.
Yeah, but and relationships are complicated,
so
right?
That you have something in your grab bag about that too.
Yeah, I do have some other things here.
We're trying to get sponsored also, Dr. Joe.
Yeah, I guess we're trying to get sponsored as well. But you have a clinical researcher and a doctor talking about these things that don't get talked about enough. I mean, I think it's worthwhile to talk about.
Right. But that loss of logic when you're on, either you're on med or maybe you're not. You're just, your estrogen levels are too high, your T is low. You get depression.
Yeah.
But same can be said. I mean, there's it's
like finasteride, right? Finasteride. There's a black box warning on finasteride. When you put men on finasteride to shrink their prostate, big old black box warning, it says, high risk of suicide attempts. Okay. Well, wow, interesting. So it's an androgen blocker, and it's associated with suicide risk, which is, you infer depression. So then now let's go back to logic, okay? Like the loss of logic. So if women are already so complex and wonderful, okay? I mean, this is nothing against women, but if women are already so complex with just their monthly cycle, and we're introducing all these chemicals into our environment which screw that up, is anybody surprised with how screwed up our society is? Like, masculine men are not allowed to, let's see, they're not allowed to talk. They're all toxic, and then all these sort of beta traits in men are being rewarded by society.
Right.
And a lot of this has to do with this chemical warfare. Maybe warfare is a strong word. Maybe you could call it chemical willful ignorance. But
so finasteride, I was researching it when you brought it up. It's a PDE5. PDE5, and then the other one for prostate is the Flomax, which is an alpha blocker.
Yeah, it's an alpha blocker. That's why it causes hypotension.
Hypotension.
Yeah.
All right.
Yeah. So,
you cut me off guard with that finasteride one.
Yeah. But
I'm not taking that one.
Right. So you got to weigh the risks and benefits whenever you're getting on a new medication.
Mm-hmm. And there's no such thing as a biological free lunch.
Never. No such thing. Let's see. What else did we
What
not
I was going
touch
to
on?
say, so low T has consequences, but also high T does have consequences too. People go on rages and...
Well, yeah, look at the super male karyotype. If you get a trisomy of your sex chromosomes, so I believe the super male is XYY. They're basically...
Really?
Oh, yeah. XYY is a karyotype, and I don't remember if they're fertile. I think some of them can be fertile, and it's dangerous because those males
XYY.
Yeah, there's some, and that's called the super male, and it's very rare.
Wow.
But XYY is associated with legal trouble and over that the real toxic masculinity,
like borderline personality, or like you're talking serial killer, or
antisocial personality disorder.
Wow.
But antisocial
personality, tell like XYY, it's not like they're super buff or anything.
They're gonna have, I think, a little bit more testosterone expression, but
But you can't tell by just looking at someone. It's more
well, if somebody has testosterone excess, you see something called acromegaly. And the easiest example is just look at Arnold Schwarzenegger. I mean, everybody knows that he was really big and he was using something.
But he's juiced to the gills.
But he's got that really chiseled, defined jaw.
But he's juiced to the gills. He's not XYY that we know.
No, he's not XYY. But you can see those physical characteristics of testosterone expression. It doesn't mean they're a super male. It just means there's a lot of testosterone.
One class of people that love this topic is our bodybuilders and people working on their physique. And if you want to ever go down the rabbit hole of hormones, just go on those bodybuilder forums. Mm-hmm. That's where I learned about clominephrines off-label use as a luteinizing hormone stimulator because it activates the pituitary to produce more LH in secondary hypogonadism. By the way, it's like a really cheap way to increase testosterone in people with secondary hypogonadism, for males at least.
So then you don't need testosterone replacement?
Nope.
Wow.
The Clomid will do it with an aromatase inhibitor.
And then
these guys are like endocrinologists.
And their testicles don't shrink?
No, because Clomid also increases FSH.
That's interesting.
Yeah. And it's like cheap as hell to get clominephrine. It's not covered by insurance, but it's cheap.
But it's better than men stabbing their arms once a week.
Men juicing. So bodybuilders use it not because they have secondary hypogonadism, but because they cycle on and off of anabolics. Mm-hmm. So they use Clomid when they're cycling off.
Just to give their bodies a break.
Well, to stimulate the testicles again.
Oh. Yeah,
these guys are experts.
So I mean, it's like the metformin that you were talking about. Because metformin has a lot of health benefits, but it inhibits muscle growth. So then the same guys use metformin, but they'll cycle off the metformin when they're exercising, right? When they're lifting.
They're not. Yeah, it's not necessarily the same camp of people using this. Metformin's really meant for like people trying to on the anti-aging side of tweaking. They call themselves the biohackers, so there is evidence to show something about telomere lengthening or shortening when it comes to metformin. I can't remember which one it is, but there's new evidence, a lot of evidence actually, that it negatively impacts muscle growth. So you should not do it on days that you're lifting.
Avoiding it on lifting days.
It's one idea. Another idea is don't use it at all if you don't need it. But then you lose the whole anti-aging aspects, there is evidence to show that. Yeah. But this Clomid thing is totally different. This is more on the testosterone LH pathway.
That's interesting.
And anabolic juicer, I mean, those guys are juiced to the gills, and when they cycle off, they get on Clomid and aromatase inhibitors.
What about are the long-term effects on the pituitary gland studied in the Clomid juicers?
They don't know if it causes tumors. I mean, they've been using it now for decades, so we would have probably seen something. Yeah. The bigger concern, if any, is on the eyes, vision.
Right.
Because the pituitary is close to the optic nerve or something like that. Right?
Well, you get bitemporal hemianopsia, you're going to be crashing your car pretty quick. Mm-hmm. I mean...
So everything there's tweaks, there's biohacking, there's things that we're not even, I mean, like this book is basically about the industry doing the biohacking on us without our consent. Yeah. But there's people consenting themselves into biohacking for what they think are positive outcomes. This is biohacking against their will by corporations. And it's the same thing at the end of the day.
Well, yeah, it is. I mean, when the soap you're using is estrogenizing you, when the air you're breathing, well, let's not talk about the air you're breathing.
When the water you're drinking.
When the water you're drinking. Okay, so another thing they touched on in this book is birth control, ED2, 17-alpha ethinyl.
I couldn't believe 60% of women in this country are on that.
Yeah. So
60% of women in the United States are on birth control.
Yeah, and
60%.
The birth control that
it's causing all kinds of diseases.
Yeah, I mean, it's associated with depression. It's associated with an increased risk of cancers, of certain cancers.
Endometriosis.
Yeah, and
especially the IUD.
Yeah, like the Mirena. I don't know if it's Mirena or
Mirena.
Is that legal Nordistrel?
Yeah. We had a study for people that had a Mirena that want it removed. They were studying the negative aspects of like how to remove it safely, and then the hormonal implications, long-term observation.
Yeah, I mean, it would be cool to get a fertility specialist on the show that would comment on, because I always thought the copper IUDs were interesting because you're using a natural mineral, like you're using an element that and copper has been used for ages to kill trees. You take a stake and you hammer it into a tree. If it's copper, that tree is going to be dead.
But it probably still does something in the hormones. Then.
Copper is important, but too much of anything's not good, right? Like Wilson's disease is definitely bad, but the estrogen the modified estrogens that are in birth control, they are designed so that our bodies react to them, but our bodies cannot clear them. But our body, or rather, they clear them much more slowly. So where does it end up? In your urine. So we're all urinating. So if so and so is on birth control and they're urinating, right? That urine goes and gets recycled, and that estrogen, that altered estrogen, ends up in the water supply, and we're drinking it. And so that's another exposure, right? So then you have to have reverse osmosis at the very least in your house.
We got that.
And I would even argue that you should get something even in addition to that. Like you should get another charcoal filter of some kind, either a Berkey or something.
Like the handheld one that you pour it into before you drink, or what do you mean?
Oh, like the Brita?
Yeah, like the Brita.
That's plastic.
So this Brita is not good.
Well, I don't know what kind of plastic it's made of. I haven't looked.
It's clear as hell. So.
It's clear as hell. Yeah. So there's phthalates, right? So you see, we're coming back to all the estrogens that we're getting exposed to, and
any plastic that's clear has phthalates. Yeah, plastic is naturally supposed to be cloudy.
Yeah. So actually,
to be healthy.
So
to be healthier.
So Dr. Bronner's soap. This is a clear plastic, and it's a type 1. So this is a BPA plastic.
But you're not drinking.
But we're not drinking it, right? So this is different. This is like, well, I'm just washing my body with it, and it's just going to get washed away.
So it can't penetrate. It doesn't want to penetrate the skin.
The degree that BPA and BPS penetrates the skin is way less than the degree that you get from drinking it.
Yeah.
So I mean, I would be less worried about that. You got to do what you got to do, but so you got to filter your water. So the water you're drinking, the soap you're putting on your hands, the hand soap, the bar soap you're putting on your body in the shower.
Yeah.
Okay. So you need to find a bar soap that's going to be good. So
go ahead.
So that's why trying to get sponsored. So that's why the Grandpa Soap Company. Okay. and we're not promoting anything that we don't use ourselves. I mean,
we're currently not sponsored by any.
This is all my stuff.
Yeah, it's all good stuff except the dim.
This is
mine.
Yeah. Well, yeah. This is yours, but. So Grandpa soap, I mean, so this is a natural thing. I mean, and this is the shortest ingredient list I've ever seen for a soap. Sodium palmate, sodium cocoate, sodium palmkernolate, water, glycerin, some wood tar, some salt, and some sodium gluconate.
That's all wood tar for the masculinity. That's the Brita.
But
yeah, does it say what kind of plastic is on there?
Well, it has all kinds of warnings on the bottom.
Yeah.
Wow, look at all the warnings.
We don't use them.
Not sponsored by Brita.
Max temperature 85 Fahrenheit. Wow, that's so reassuring.
Don't take it outside in Yuma.
I mean, boy, I'm so reassured by that 85 degrees. Okay, so
do we ever put that in the dishwasher?
We don't. No, we haven't used it. We just moved it around. I used it for dog water.
So the thing that concerns me is
for dogs doesn't matter because they only lift it like 10 or 15.
I don't see what kind of plastic this is.
It doesn't say.
So that's a very bad sign if you don't even know what kind of plastic it is.
But the fact that it's clear and not cloudy. I mean, it's cloudy now because we've used it so much.
Yeah, it's cloudy. It's cloudy because you drank all the phthalates.
Is it safe to use for dogs? Because I used it for dog water.
Dogs only live to like 15, so they don't have to worry about cancer.
I mean, I don't know. Jury's out on
they
that.
do worry about cancer for dogs. I want to give
but like humans like live till 80. That's
chemical reduction unit. What does that mean?
That's why dogs can drink tap water and nothing really like bad happens for the most part, right?
I don't know.
I mean, most dogs drink like tap water.
Yeah,
who's gonna give their dogs filtered water?
I mean, animals.
I actually do.
We do.
I do
We
inside, but outside they drink tap water.
Yeah.
Yeah, animals. One thing that's cool about animals is that they're very sensitive to things, and so they can detect certain chemicals more than others. And and I'm sure they ignore things, but it's but.
So if the plastic is bad, the filter, it doesn't matter, right? That they use a filter on it.
Yeah, so that's another thing. I mean, you have a plastic container, and then you have a plastic filter. And so, you're filtering out heavy metals. You might be getting rid of some of the estrogens in the water. But you're still getting all of these plastic.
And if people ever throw it in the dishwasher, it's said not to go over 85. Those dishwashers go up to 400.
Boiling? I mean, definitely boiling.
Yeah.
I mean, definitely boiling water is in the dishwasher.
Yeah, not 400. Well, I wanted to. I apologize if I'm throwing you a curveball, but compound exercises like squatting, deadlifts, male or female, there's benefits. There's obviously muscle. Like, we haven't really discussed muscle outside of bodybuilders. Yeah. Dr. Smith, who's both of our boss in a way.
Dr. Smith is he is an authority on this.
So what's his rationale? Like, you must understand some of it.
So when you think about working out, there's a bunch of different ways you work out. There's cardio, and when you say cardio, you're referring to doing something that raises your heart rate up for a sustained period of time. In an effort to reduce your lifelong risk of heart attacks and strokes. That's why it's elevation. That's why it's called cardio. Well, I mean, going to elevation, that affects your DNA expression, right? If it's changing the way your hormones are expressed, that elevation is affecting your DNA immediately. But
we do want to get into epigenetics towards the end.
I
wanted to talk about exercise.
But so cardio is cardio. As the name denotes, it reduces your cardiovascular risk. So that's great. Cardio does not help you lose weight, though. Cardio almost, you could think of it almost as locking in your fat and just keeping it there until the cardio's done. And then, so there's heart benefits, there's cardiovascular benefits, but you don't lose weight by doing pure cardio. So how do you lose weight? From exercise, you have to lift. You have to do something that rips your muscles, like get ripped.
Force USA G3.
Yeah. So, but then there's two other different things that you have to work out, and you could say Bruce Lee emphasized this a lot because he was probably one of the most physically fit martial artists.
You guys saw the shoes at the beginning.
Yeah. You guys saw the Onitsukas, but there's fast twitch and there's stretching. Okay, so you have all these people who do yoga and they're doing stretching, great, but how many people are focusing on their fast twitch? See, if people are playing sports, then they're getting some fast twitch out of their sports. Whereas people are doing MMA or speed bag or anything with martial arts, then they're getting some fast twitch. But because you have to balance out all these things if you want to be working out and have a sort of a balanced body. So, but the short answer is you have to build muscle in order to promote weight loss, and that's not with cardio.
But muscle also promotes testosterone increases. Yeah, especially lifting heavy.
Yeah, so there's a feedback loop. I mean, there are all these studies done on male testosterone. I mean, just certain behaviors, like certain activities, will just build up, will make your testosterone expression go up.
Do they understand these mechanisms of action, or
superficially at least?
Yeah,
some of them more than others. But it's more about building healthier habits and getting away from all the chemicals that we've talked about.
Yeah, I just thought it was super important to mention some of those compound movements you can be doing, male or female.
Yeah. To
regulate your hormone. Your body wants to regulate. Homeostasis is a real thing. Your body's trying to achieve it at all times.
It's like an ecosystem.
Yeah.
It's a delicate balance of all these things that feed into it. But
okay, anything else in your grab bag before we move on to epigenetics?
The last thing in the grab bag that I didn't mention was just another kind of a soap. So I mean, we talked about the Grandpa soap, but this one is Grondike soap, and it's a book that Richard Cooper, the Unplugged Alpha guy, recommends. It's a pretty good soap company. They call it Tactical Soap. You should read more about it. Grondike. Check it out, Grondike. Anyway, yeah, I think that's those are all the things I could grab quickly.
So epigenetics then. Can we make the complex a little simpler?
Yeah, epigenetics. Still tons of research to be done, still being done on epigenetics, but the short of it is your DNA is not just your DNA. There's some DNA is wrapped up in histones and it gets almost tucked away, and some DNA gets expressed more than other DNA, and then there's something called acetylation and methylation. And like, what is a methyl group in organic chemistry? Well, it's
CH3 or CH4?
It's one of these vertices here. That's like a single carbon, and if you take that carbon away, so this vertice is a carbon, and all of these things that are sticking off here is a hydrogen. So this is methane. This is methane gas. This is what is found naturally in petroleum and all over the place. Okay, that's a methane. But if I were to put two of these dots together, that's an ethane. Okay, and then so there's hydrogens on each of those. Okay, but when we're drawing the stick models here, then you sort of eliminate the hydrogens because you're talking about bigger molecules.
So that's C2H6 right there.
Yeah, this is C2H6, and that's
so what is that called? C2H6?
Ethane.
Ethane.
So, but when it gets attached to something, then you kind of call it acetylated.
So can you explain that again? Like acetylated is
so you have DNA. And I don't remember how to draw the pyrimidines and the purines, okay, guys?
Yeah.
But you have a phosphate, and a sugar, and a base. Okay, this is the basic building block of DNA. So the backbone of your DNA is phosphate, sugar, phosphate, sugar, phosphate, sugar, and then if you're a bacteria that lives in Mono Lake, this phosphate is an arsenic. So that's another topic, but. Anyway, so you have all these bases, and so this is half of a piece of DNA. So then this base is attached to another base that's attached to something else. It's not exactly like this, but this is basically like what it is.
Okay.
So the bases get methylated, I believe. So different parts of the DNA can get acetylated and methylated, and this can cause genes to get turned on and turned off, or not turned on and turned off, but more emphasized and de-emphasized.
Express or not?
Yeah. So one example is, and Dr. J talks about it in his book, the diethylstilbestrol exposure can lead to cancers in the offspring's offspring, and etc. And during a famine, there were a bunch of women who were pregnant during a famine. And then those babies, their babies, ended up having gene expression associated with the famine that the original mothers experienced. So even just a stressful stimuli without any chemicals, it can cause an epigenetic influence on later generations. And so then you wonder, like, is this the basis of genetic memory? So you got a whole avenue of research going on there.
Yes, I read an article on Scientific American recently that talked about how PTSD is actually transferred.
It can be transferred
genetically.
Wow.
And they discover this by studying the offspring of Holocaust survivors. And they were more likely to have PTSD themselves than someone who wasn't an offspring of a Holocaust survivor.
That's amazing.
And it had to do with epigenetics. So for those interested, I'll find the link and link it underneath on the Scientific American. I just read that the other day.
That's insane. But it's true. Because
anything else that we didn't mention that you want to?
Let's see. Anything else on the topic of hormones? I'm not going to get into all the things that you can do. Oh, yeah, one last thing I want to talk about. Yeah. So food, your food supply. So Dr. J talks about fish in this book. So when fish are exposed to these chemicals we're talking about, it actually cuts their fertility by orders of magnitude. Okay, orders of massive amount
right away.
Yeah. And then especially prolonged exposure is almost fatal for a species in some cases. So, and that affects our food supply. So, all this regulation going on when people go fishing, people are saying that, the federal government says, everybody's overfishing. No, the fish are not reproducing because we're inundating them with chemicals that are destroying their fertility. And these chemicals are not only destroying their fertility, they're destroying our fertility. And what is the fertility? I mean, everybody knows the fertility rate, the birth rate is declining.
Mm-hmm.
It doesn't look good for the United States, and nobody's talking about it.
Yeah.
If the CDC is going to talk about breast cancer rates, how about the CDC start talking about low T rates and talking about the low birth rate? How about let's talk about the low interest in having children in the 20-year-olds these days, and 20 and 30-year-olds? Like there's almost no interest in having kids. Why is that? Got to think about why. Are the hormones making us disinterested in having kids?
Nope.
Then there's THC. Did you get to the part where he was talking about?
No, not yet. But I do know I've seen other studies where THC is terrible for you, and it's a huge estrogenator. Mm-hmm. Does that mean CBD is?
Well, CBD is so CBD and THC are a little different, right?
Yeah.
Because CBD is in hemp, and then marijuana has cannabidiol and THC in it. But so THC, I think, is extremely dangerous. Not only because when teenagers get exposed to it, it causes irreversible brain changes. Mm-hmm. I'll say it again. Marijuana causes irreversible brain changes in teenagers. Okay, irreversible. And and not only that, but THC. There's studies indicating that THC preferentially likes to sit next to our testicles and ovaries. It likes to sit and be collected in the fat next to our gonads. And then what does everybody associate marijuana with? Just a disinterest in sex. Mm-hmm. People are just completely disinterested. And then let's see. So she just put some full spectrum CBD oil in front of me here. What is this used for?
CBD plus THC, that one.
This is THC?
CBD plus THC, that has both.
This one?
Yeah, and this one just CBD.
No, that's a dog one, right?
Yeah.
Oh, this is for dogs.
That one's for me. That one's for dogs.
Oh, that one's for dogs. Wow. So what is this for?
It's for inflammation. Like instead of using
this is for dogs.
Terpenes. So there's some good things in here. Terpenes. Like this is why you go to a pine forest and it's like a mood stabilizer. It's because you're smelling the terpenes that are coming out of the trees.
Yeah.
But interesting. Well, I'd be curious. And how long have you been using this one?
Years.
Years.
Yeah. Usually we don't do the CBD plus THC, but there are indications for pain for where
that's amazing.
The CBD makes the THC makes the CBD stronger than CBD by itself. There's all bunches. I found the article, so like this shows, and this may be a good place to end, how these things interact, like overlap. Mm-hmm. So the PTSD study, we examined methylation with the gene FKBP5, mm-hmm. which encodes a protein involved in regulating the ability of the glucocorticoid receptor to bind cortisol. The findings showed related methylation patterns within this gene in both Holocaust parents and their children. So it's low cortisol. The article is going to be linked there, but the low cortisol in and of itself means you're not dealing with stress. But the fact that their baseline, so it's the methylation of the gene plus the changes in levels of cortisol at the low versus at the high, those spikes, mm-hmm. Create the PTSD.
So there's a context.
Yeah.
There's always a context, right?
Always, so but like this too, like this stuff's complicated, like hormones, and cortisol's a hormone, testosterone's a hormone. I mean, all these things are kind of related, and epigenetics, methylation, acetylation, like you were saying. It just, you guys can dig deep and explore further. I mean, there's no way we can.
There's too much to read. I mean, just if you look at the references in this book, every single chapter. I mean, like, so one chapter goes up to 24, 62. 50, 40. I mean, there's hundreds of references in this book to read more.
So what's the take-home message then for people to watch? I guess they take home whatever they want out of it. But.
Well, the take-home message is to, if you're motivated to learn more, get Dr. J's book, read it, and start applying the precautionary principle to your life by eliminating estrogenic exposures, artificial estrogenic exposures. Things like this, things like, red food coloring, anything artificial. Get rid of your fragrant things. If you're already on medications, make sure you're talking to your doctor and make sure that they're aware. If you decide to start eliminating these exposures, visit with your doctor. And if there's a possibility that you could get off of medications, you have to make that decision with your doctor. If you don't need any of those medications, right? But like I said, this is a whole change in mindset. To blindly trust the industries that put cheap products in front of you is folly.
I guess that's it. We don't know what topic we'll do next month. That'll be a surprise for you and for us. But thank you, Dr. Joe.
Thank you.
And we'll have links to all these things.
Yeah, we're gonna have a link to Maddox's site. We'll put
Can
a
you
link.
send me links to all these things?
Yeah. I can send links to this stuff.
That way I get everything underneath, and the book and the dim and all that stuff. The article, the Scientific American article.
Yeah, and if you liked it, comment. If you were offended, great, comment something. We always want to get people interested, whether they're offended or not. So.
Sometimes the offended people are more fans than the non-offended.
Oh yeah.
You shook them.
Yeah.
In one of their core beliefs, and they're gonna explore further.
Yeah.
All right. Thank you. Like, subscribe, comment, share, guys. Bye bye.